Well, certainly some very interesting shifts happening in the South African electorate. It seems with a very low voter turnout, a historic low voter turnout, and the ANC acknowledging they're likely to drop below the 50% support mark. The way is open for more coalitions, but it's also a sign that things are changing in politics. So let's bring in now Ipsos Director Marie Harris and my colleague Rofhiwa Madzena. Good evening, ladies. Such interesting times that we are living in. And the fact that the ANC is now acknowledging that they're going to drop below 50%. Maria, I have to ask, you called that, didn't you?
Yes, we did. And when I first saw that, it was about a year ago, we first saw that the ANC is dropping under 50%. But I wasn't sure, because you look at the whole population and you don't know whether, you know, what the voter turnout will be, how many people will register. You can only do those sums closer to an election. And we really started doing those sums when we started working with the eNCA data. And yes, I must say I am very relieved that it's working out like we said for the last 2 weeks.
No, that's absolutely true. And that is the theme for our discussion point this time, Sally. We're talking about trust of politicians and parties. And let's just bring up the first slide here. So Marie, Ipsos, the team have been looking at the party trust that's been coming through over the last while. And while the ANC remains on top, over the years, you will hear from Marie in a moment, that this has dropped quite significantly. So talk us through that, Marie.
Well, Rofhiwa, as I said to you so many times these last 2 weeks, trust is the thing in politics that's most important. And we have seen people who didn't turn up to vote, who said from the beginning they're not going to vote, saying that their reason is because they don't trust political parties and they don't trust politicians. So let's look at these figures with that in our minds. We see that that proportions to say they're very likely to trust or extremely likely to trust the three biggest parties in the country. The ANC definitely still the biggest and most trusted at 38%, DA at 23% and EFF at 25%. But we do an interesting calculation with this where we look at the proportion of people who say they don't trust the party and then subtract them from those who say they do trust the party, just to see what the net trust is, because you can be trusted by 40%, but the other 60% might hate you. So what is the net trust? And we can see all three figures there in the negative. And as you just mentioned, the ANC trust figure in December 2020, so 10 months ago, was 19, a score of 19, and now it's minus 3.8.
Yeah. But it's very interesting that the DA and EFF trust has fallen even further than what you would think the ANC would have, just given the lack of service delivery and all the issues that people have had with the ANC.
Yes, but remember, people also had issues with the DA and they also had issues with the EFF, and VBS Bank. And to be honest, if we look at the politician score, you will see the same phenomenon with Mr. Malema. He's either hated or loved.
There's no in between.
There's no in between. So that is very true in his case and also in his party's case. And the DA also had a lot of issues from last year. Internal issues mainly that I think hampered their performance in this election.
Yeah, Sally, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it is interesting because Fikile Mbalula, when he was chatting to Shahan, ANC head of elections, was saying that their drop in not only the voter turnout, the low voter turnout, but the fact that ANC is heading for less than 50% nationally, he sees it as a warning.
Yes.
And that the voters have actually said to them, we are not going to go and vote. We're not going to vote for someone else, but we're not going to vote you either.
Yeah.
That it's almost a bit of a boycott, which is kind of, it sounds to me like it's a bit of a dysfunctional relationship. But the way he sort of puts it is they've got one last chance to get things right. And that perhaps speaks to the trust issue, Marie.
It does very strongly speak to the trust issue, Sally. But the other thing that it says, it's safer to do something like that, like the boycott, in a local government election than in a national election. We know that in 2016 there was a big stay-away vote, big stay away from ANC supporters in the 2016 election, and already ANC support dropped. In 2019, some of those people actually went to the polls and voted, but now they stayed away again, and there's more that stayed away. So I think it is safer because, you know, it doesn't, the government of the country in its absolute terms, the national and provincial government doesn't change. But the local government, which, by the way, has been the most dysfunctional of all the levels of government, does change. And perhaps that's a good thing.
Let's take a look at the leaders, because it's not just about the parties, and the leaders are very important. And I think since Cyril Ramaphosa came in, we did a nice graphic yesterday. There was that new dawn sweet spot where sentiment and optimism about South Africa and Cyril was at a nice peak, and that has since dropped. And we're also seeing here that his popularity has also dropped as an individual, not just him as a party. And quite interestingly as well, Julius Malema, who you'd think would be a winner amongst young people, not doing too great either.
Yes, I just want to refer to one other thing, because Cyril Ramaphosa not only is the leader of the ANC, but he is also the president of the country. As the president of the country, 47% think he's doing a good job. And John Steenhuisen is not only the leader of the DA, but he's also the leader of the opposition. And 23% of South Africans are saying he's doing a good job as the leader of the opposition. So these people wear different hats. But let's look at it. These figures are very close about trust in the three big politicians in the country, 23%, 20% and 17%. But then we see a big difference coming in the index figures. And as I said to you, Julius Malema is either hated or loved, a score of minus 27.6. We see that he has, well, not much less than the other two on the positive side. And then John Steenhuisen, which an issue with him was for a long time that he wasn't very well known. I think
the survey did indicate that a lot of people don't know who the leader of the DA is.
Yes, exactly. His score is minus 31.2. So he has a big job in that, playing the role of the leader of the opposition and getting more well-known in the country. And then talking about Cyril Ramaphosa with the only index figure that's positive at a meager 2.2. And his positive score was 38. In December 2020. So a lot of things happened from December 2020 to now, this last 10 months, that made his index figures so much lower than what they were at the end of last year.
Yeah, I wonder if any of that has got to do with this load shedding that has just come back into our homes.
Yes.
So we'll see. We're going to be talking about this a lot more, Sally. Hopefully, before the IEC briefing, we're going to be bringing you the people's wish list, what the people want to see their local governments do for them.
I have to ask one quick question. Marie, Herman Mashaba, I mean, we've seen how well Action SA is doing in Johannesburg, but in fact, all three metros in Gauteng. You talk about trust in a personality. Something about him is resonating. What do you think it is?
We actually spoke about it yesterday because of the three mayoral candidates in Johannesburg. He had the biggest score in points out of 10. And it is because people know him as the mayor or the previous mayor of Johannesburg.
So
that's
it's
the one
that
side.
familiarity factor.
And there is something resonating with his policies.
Fascinating.
And we could see that.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely delve into more of that. Thank you very much, ladies.